The tennis world is currently in an absolute state of shock. And if you have not been paying close attention to the whispers coming out of the professional locker rooms, you are completely unprepared for what is about to happen on court. We are looking at a matchup that on paper seems like a competitive battle between two of the brightest young stars in the Women's Tennis Association. You have Leylah Fernandez, the former US Open finalist, a player known for her incredible grit, her magical run in New York, and her relentless fighting spirit. And on the other side of the net, you have Alexandra Eala, the rising prodigy from the Philippines, the pride of the Rafa Nadal Academy, and a player who is rapidly transforming from a highly touted prospect into an absolute nightmare for the established veterans of the WTA Tour. But here is the brutal, unfiltered reality that the mainstream tennis media is too terrified to say out loud. The match is already over. It is done. Before the coin is even tossed, before the first warm-up ball is struck, the tactical and physical geometry of this specific matchup has already tilted the outcome into place. Top tennis analysts, the people who actually study raw data, spin rates, and biomechanics, are confidently suggesting that Alexandra Eala is not just going to beat Leylah Fernandez. She is going to completely and utterly overwhelm her in the first 30 minutes of the match. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving deep into the tactical mismatch of the year. We are going to break down exactly why Leylah's greatest weapons are completely useless here, how Eala's specific brand of heavy aggressive baseline tennis is pure poison for Fernandez, and why the experts are already predicting an absolute bloodbath. Grab a seat, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into the deepest tactical breakdown on YouTube. To truly understand why analysts are forecasting such a swift, violent, and completely one-sided demolition, we first have to zoom in on the physical evolution of Alexandra Eala. For years, the tennis world has known her as a junior Grand Slam champion, a gifted teenager from the Philippines carrying the weight of an entire nation's expectations on her young shoulders, but the player stepping on court now is no longer that junior, because she has gone through a frightening physical and tactical transformation at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, where under the influence of Rafael Nadal's system, she has not only learned how to strike a tennis ball, but how to suffer, how to endure, and most importantly how to break an opponent through relentless physical pressure, as she has added serious muscle to her frame, reshaping her kinetic chain and unlocking a new level of baseline power that is no longer just flat hitting but heavy, vicious, violently spinning topspin that jumps off the court with brutal height and depth, making it incredibly difficult for smaller players to control, because she does not just hit through the court, she hits heavy through it, and that difference is everything in modern tennis, since even perfect timing collapses when you are constantly absorbing high-bouncing, shoulder-rising balls that push you further behind the baseline until your footwork breaks down, your rhythm disappears, and your resistance starts to fade, as Eala has effectively turned her ground strokes into constant heavy artillery fire that dictates every rally from the very first shot. And then when you turn to the other side of the net and look at Leylah Fernandez, nobody is questioning her heart or her fight, because her breakthrough US Open final run in 2021 was built on elite timing, taking the ball early on the rise, stealing time from opponents, and redirecting pace with incredible precision, but that entire identity depends on one thing: clean waist-high contact where she can step inside the court and control angles, and when that contact point is pushed shoulder-high and she is forced 3 or 4 feet behind the baseline under heavy topspin pressure, the entire system begins to collapse because she is not built to consistently generate heavy depth from defensive positions against that kind of spin, which is exactly why experts are pointing toward a rapid, one-sided outcome, as Eala's heavy topspin game denies her the rhythm balls she needs, forcing her into deep defensive corners and constant scrambling from the opening rallies. And then there is the most overlooked layer of all, the lefty versus lefty dynamic, because Fernandez has built so much of her success on being a left-handed problem for right-handed players, using wide serves, cross-court forehands, and natural angles that constantly expose backhands, but against Alexandra Eala that entire tactical advantage disappears completely because she is also left-handed, flipping the geometry of the court and removing the very patterns Fernandez relies on to control matches. When Eala hits her favorite slider serve out wide on the ad court, it doesn't pull a right-handed backhand into trouble anymore. It lands right in the strike zone of Alexandra Eala's lethal lefty forehand, like throwing raw meat to a starving lion, and she can rip it down the line with authority. When Fernandez tries her heavy cross-court forehand, it feeds directly into Eala's rock-solid two-handed backhand, where there is no panic, no gap, no opening to exploit. All the built-in advantages Fernandez usually walks onto court with are suddenly gone. She is forced into a neutral baseline exchange against a player producing a heavier, more punishing ball, and that alone turns the match into a pure physical war of attrition that her lighter frame and timing-based style were never designed to survive. But the real story goes beyond tennis mechanics. This becomes psychological warfare, a battle of confidence and trajectory. Because in elite sport, what you believe is half the match before a single point is played. Fernandez has been carrying the weight of expectation since her breakout US Open run, chasing a version of herself she briefly became on that one magical swing, and every match since has come with that invisible pressure of trying to recreate something that feels just out of reach. That kind of burden creates hesitation in the biggest moments, especially when results don't match memory. On the other side, Eala walks in with the opposite energy entirely. She is not defending a legacy, she is building one. No scar tissue, no doubt, just momentum. She carries the energy of an entire nation behind her and plays with the freedom of someone who genuinely believes her game is still rising every week. That kind of clarity is dangerous because she steps on court expecting to impose herself physically, not survive. So when Fernandez realizes early that her serve is not hurting, that her timing is being rushed, and that she is being pushed further and further behind the baseline, the pressure starts to build point by point. And in elite tennis, once that pressure tips into panic, matches can disappear in minutes. Because Eala also dominates what modern analytics call the first strike battle, where more than 70% of points are won by the player who lands the first aggressive blow. She attacks second serves immediately, stepping inside the court and turning what should be neutral starts into defensive scrambles before Fernandez even settles into a rhythm. From there, everything accelerates. Eala's footwork on clay allows her to slide, stabilize, and explode through contact, while Fernandez is forced to hit on the stretch or off-rising, heavy balls that keep climbing above her strike zone. Those half-chances turn into errors, short replies, and hanging balls that Eala punishes instantly. The court positioning trap becomes absolute, because Fernandez cannot step back without losing attacking power, and cannot step forward without being overwhelmed by spin and weight. Even physically, the gap grows. Eala's conditioning allows her to maintain heavy rally intensity deep into exchanges, bouncing between points with constant energy, while Fernandez, despite her fighting spirit, is forced into repeated physical scrambles that gradually take away her precision and foot speed. And when that micro-timing disappears, the entire counterpunching identity she relies on starts to break down under the weight of relentless pressure. The experts who are predicting this 30-minute demolition are looking directly at that physical gap. They know that by game 5 or 6 of the opening set, the lactic acid in Fernandez's legs from constantly scrambling behind the baseline to handle Eala's heavy ball will start to accumulate. The footwork slows, even if only by half a second, and in elite tennis that is the difference between a clean winner and a ball buried in the net. And then there is the coaching chess match behind the scenes, because this is where matches are truly engineered. Eala's camp understands the assignment completely. They have studied Fernandez for hours, they have seen how she reacts under pressure against physically imposing hitters, and they know the blueprint is simple in theory but brutal in execution. Push her deep, hit heavy into her forehand side, and attack the second serve relentlessly. Eala has all of those tools. Her coaching staff will likely instruct her to target Fernandez's high backhand repeatedly, to keep the ball heavy, deep, and loaded with spin, and to resist the temptation to rush for highlight winners. Instead, the focus is suffocation. Point after point of pressure. Rally after rally of weight and depth. It is not about flash, it is about erosion. The same clay court philosophy that defined Rafael Nadal's dominance now echoed through his academy system, where control, patience, and physical pressure slowly drain an opponent's game until it breaks. The media will always chase the romantic version of this story. The comeback narrative, the underdog fight, the memory of Fernandez's magic in New York, the idea that she can summon something familiar under pressure. But the reality of high-level tennis is colder. It does not respond to storylines. It responds to geometry, spin, positioning, and physical output, and in that language, Eala arrives as a player built for this exact kind of matchup. Heavy, disciplined, tactically mature beyond her years, and physically equipped to sustain pressure for long stretches without dropping intensity. That is why analysts talk about this outcome so decisively. Not as emotion, but as calculation. This is why the prediction of a rapid finish exists. It is not about disrespecting Fernandez's history or fight. It is about recognizing a matchup where one player's strengths directly compress the other player's time, space, and rhythm until there is nowhere left to reset, and when that happens, the narrative around the WTA shifts slightly again. Another reminder that the next generation is not just arriving, but arriving with a different physical and tactical standard.